With quarantine slowly coming to an end as more parts of the world loosen stay-at-home restrictions, though one thing that's constantly been on my mind is, Smash tournaments. What it will be like to compete in them again. I think we can all say we've had our fair share of Wi-Fi events, but they obviously aren't the same as offline events. Don't get me wrong, I'm extremely grateful for people such as Moist Critical for making huge strides to give to the community during these times, as we've been able to see lots of new faces and players rise to the spotlight. Speaking of new players rising to the spotlight, I've been thinking of how these times we spend at home will affect in-person tournaments once we return to them again. More specifically, if we'll see new players rise in their rankings, see players fall, or maybe even a new meta emerge. Everyone knows playing offline is different than online due to things like input delay and less time to react, so I'm not going to be going into the specifics for that. Since for the most part we've been forced to play strictly online, many people have started doing things to benefit the online meta, such as drop their mains, learn new characters, experiment with different playstyles, and more. It's possible that when we return to in-person tournaments, results will be entirely different from the way they were before quarantine. We'll be able to see who really pushed their limits and continued to train hard during this time, and who gave in to the comforts of their home and put practice aside. Now, I'm not saying MKLeo is washed or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I have a feeling he's still easily going to be the best player in the world once we return. However, it's entirely possible we see a new PGR top 20 when the time comes. The second thing I'd like to talk about is new playstyles, or rather, campier ones. Out of all the characters we've seen put in the spotlight over this period, I think it's fair to say no other character has received as much attention as Sonic has. With the entire world watching, we've been able to witness players like Sonic's, Wrath, and You're Too Slow place very high in major online tournaments such as the Quarantine Series, the Box, Pound Online, and more. While I'm not here to bash on these players or their playstyles, most of them tend to have a more, patient approach to the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. It isn't unknown that people tend to look down on players who have a less exciting or campy playstyle. With online tournaments eliminating many of the regular in-person competitive factors, I found a lot more people aren't ashamed playing in a way that might regularly be looked down upon. Before quarantine, we hardly ever saw Sonic get high results. However, it's possible that some of these online results carry on into offline tournaments. It's already being seen that more and more people are picking up Sonic. This is entirely normal, as it usually happens whenever a player tends to win or do well at a tournament. We've seen it happen with MKLeo and Joker, Meister and Game & Watch, Mars and ZSS, etc. Due to the fact we've been exposed to such a new, campy playstyle, it's possible this could lead us into a new meta entirely. Whether this is a good or bad thing is too early to say. To help answer some of these questions, I decided to take things to Twitter and see if we could ask some influencers themselves. The 4 questions I asked were: do you think it's possible some of these online results will carry offline? Will the last few months be a test to who really practice? Could the exposure to the more passive and patient playstyles we've been seeing online lead to a campier offline meta? And lastly, do you think Ultimate Sonic could ever reach the level of success that Smash 4 Sonic saw? I'm very grateful to say that Vic, Larry Lur, and Banana Boy all got back to me and gave their opinion on the topic. Vic said he doesn't expect many results to carry over, that practice is still as important regardless of offline or online play. He can see players trying new strategies offline, and that he thinks Sonic as a character could only rise in the tier list as time goes on. I agree with everything Vic has to say except for his first point. I think we're gonna see a lot of new faces once the time comes. I think a big factor in moving up in the rankings is having enough confidence. It's possible that the high placements and results of these players have been getting might be all the confidence they need in order to help push them go further offline. Vic also makes a good point that the PGR will probably be different regardless, as Ultimate is a young game and it's normal for results to fluctuate. Larry Lur, on the other hand, replied by saying he does think some results will carry over. Non-offline practice can be difficult, that offline tournaments should be different from online due to factors like having more time to react, and that Sonic in Ultimate is currently still worse than Smash 4's iteration. Larry Lur, having the most experience playing at the top level from the others here, seems to have the most realistic approach. I'd say having more reaction time is the biggest factor to playing on LAN. Something that makes me wonder is, for all the players still playing mostly based on reaction and doing well online, could this be a buff for their abilities on LAN once they have even more frames to react offline? He also mentions that Ultimate Sonic is still worse than Smash 4 Sonic currently. Personally, I feel as though the different iterations aren't too far apart, and I think the gap will continue to get smaller as time goes on and the character gets more and more optimized. Lastly, Banana Boy said that you can learn a lot from online despite its flaws. It won't be surprising to see upsets at first. Patient play might come, but aggression isn't going anywhere, and Smash 4's variant of Sonic still did far better in events back then. Banana Boy brings up a good point that online can still be very good practice. Meister has already said before he spent most of his days in Smash 4 playing online in For Glory in order to train, and we've definitely seen our fair share of other players rise after starting their careers online. Another thing he mentioned is that players have been giving more opportunity to practice against some of the best in the world that they might have not gotten otherwise. It can definitely be more practical to practice versus people who don't live nearby, since we've been forced to spend so much time at home anyway. He also agrees with me that we might see more Sonic players in time, although aggression still has its place in the game. Finally, sharing the same opinion as Larry and Vic, Banana Boy doesn't see Ultimate Sonic reaching Smash 4's consistency. I think it's really interesting to see that some of these people had a slightly different opinion on the topic, some saying that online can be really good practice, while some saying the opposite. Some saying we'll see upsets, some saying we won't. However, I'm glad they all think playstyles won't reach the level of campiness we've seen online, and honestly, I hope they're right. A few characters I think have been really benefiting from this online meta are Young Link, Ness, and Cloud. This could be due to the fact that these characters don't require the player to react as much, as you can usually get away with throwing out lots of random hitboxes that cover lots of options. For example, Young Link's projectiles and Cloud's auto cancel abilities along with the range on his sword. Luckily, most of this information shouldn't matter too much as we slowly return to offline events, and once the world has fully recovered, I have a feeling online tournaments will be much rarer than they are now, similarly to the way they were before quarantine, where we only saw the occasional semi-large event. One positive that we've definitely seen besides seeing lots of new faces in the community is the amount of events that people are going out of their way to host. I wonder what will happen to the hundreds of small weekly tournaments that are hosted all the time, or rather, if any of them will stay once things return back to normal. They definitely had their advantages. It was nice knowing that pretty much every day there was some type of tournament being hosted, so you always had some type of way to practice against other good players without too much of a hassle. In addition, I'm sure a lot more people have invested in LAN adapters over this period of time, so maybe online practice won't be as bad as it used to be. For me at least, I've seen a lot less lag online than I have during the first 6 months of Ultimate. Something else I haven't been taking too much into consideration is other parts of the world during this time, especially Europe and Japan. I haven't been following Japan's online scene too much other than Ron, the Kirby player, winning a large online event over players like Shuton and Sakurai. Maybe they're also seeing lots of different players and characters rise. I have a feeling things might be looking a little different once tournaments return back to normal, at least for a little while. What do you guys think? Do you think we'll see new faces and playstyles when we return to competing offline? Or do you think things will be the same as when we left it? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe so that I know you guys like this type of content, as I have many more plans and interesting video ideas for the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.